Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gray Area. Thank you for tuning in. So glad that you guys have decided to join us tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
So we're going to get started with our Gray Area prayer. Shashura, you want to take it away?
Yes. The prayer for Gray Area. God, please open my mind to new ideas, possibilities, and perspectives. Give me the ability to discern the truth. Help me connect with others despite our differences. Let me not lean on my own understanding. Lord, we invite you into this conversation. Have your way.
So I'll go right into the Gray Area introduction. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is God's perspective on my situation? Does it align with His? Introducing the Gray Area. The Gray Area is designed to challenge your thinking. Many times we don't realize it, but the way we're raised, the things our parents taught us, school, society, and experience all play a part in how we think and perceive things. Perception is everything. We're both mothers, wives, daughters, friends, ordinary women who love God. Yet our one goal, our one desire is to please Him, integrate His way and His perspective into our lives. This is not always easy, especially when we have been programmed to think a certain way. However, God has purposed us to challenge others on their very belief system. Does it align with His? We often try to see things black and white, wrong and right, good and bad, but this thing called grace and love does not allow us to see things so simple. Everyday conversations, discussions, and situations through the lens of God is our prayer. We invite you to listen to our conversation and chime in. Perspective matters. So we just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to participate in today's discussion, you would just hit *6, and you would go to the queue, and we'll be able to take the call from there. So Tashura is going to go right into setting the table for today's topic.
All right. So today we want to talk about chivalry, right? And a lot of times, I said that earlier to a couple of people, and they didn't really even understand the terminology. I think they think it's kind of like an old school terminology, but it's pretty much the etiquette of how a man treats a woman treats a man, almost, those things that kind of say, and I'll give you just examples, where the man pays for dinner, and the man will ask a woman out, and the man will pay for dinner, or the man opens the door for a woman. The woman would serve the man, let's say serve him his meal, or, even, for example, a man walking on the outside, like if you guys are going for a walk, a man and a woman, he'd be walking on the outside closer to the street, those kind of things. And the question that we wanted to pose today is chivalry dead, and who killed it? So I think this is super interesting, and I think it would lead to a bigger topic that we also want to talk about, Shanae, but I think this is a great introduction to a bigger topic where we would like to talk about gender roles. But today we're going to talk about chivalry. So what do you think? Do you think it's dead, Shanae?
I would say so. I definitely had to kind of reflect on, I guess, my experiences and interactions with men and pertaining to chivalry. And I think I was sharing with you an example of when I was pregnant on the train, because I'm just not used to, men always going out of their way, and I'm not speaking in terms of my husband, but I'm just speaking about just at one point I used to take the train a lot. So I'm so used to men sitting on the train, old women standing, so it was just something I wasn't used to. And I remember being like 9 months pregnant, and I was like so tired, and this gentleman had offered his seat after standing for a large amount of time, and I said, no, thank you. And, I guess for me, it's to the point where I don't even know how to receive an act of kindness or when someone is trying to display chivalry just because I have no expectation of it, which is pretty interesting. I was reading an article where it said kind of like, going through the definition of what chivalry is and, opening the door for a woman, pulling out her chair, paying for dinner. And with this new feminist movement, it's almost like women get offended, and I think the feminist movement definitely has attributed to the change of chivalry and what a man should do and he shouldn't do. And I kind of want to delve a little bit deeper into that. So to answer your initial question, I can only speak from my experience. I think that, in my travels and just interactions with people, I don't really feel that many men do it. There are some. I'm not going to say all. I mean, that would be an overgeneralization. But I would have to say I would expect more or less not to receive acts of kindness or men necessarily going out of their way to help, if that makes sense. What are your thoughts and your experience with it?
Well, for me, I would have to say in many cases, and I don't know if I still consider myself to be young, but I would say with older men, and I could, talk about even me being pregnant because you brought that up. When I was pregnant, and I don't know if it's because it's a cultural thing or what, because I live in I would say in a very highly populated Caribbean community. And when I was pregnant, I got so much. I mean, I think over the men went crazy. I got men bought juice for water for me. They would carry my groceries. Especially if when my husband wasn't around, oh my goodness, they would want to push my cart to my car. I got so much help when I was pregnant. And I don't know if it's coming necessarily from the younger generation. I was also reading an article earlier, and they were talking about how the younger generation just kind of doesn't even communicate now. They don't even, chivalry's dead because, they don't even know how to communicate. And women just in general are just accepting what this lack of expectancy from a man, that they should do certain things, that they should pay for dinner or pull out a chair or give up their seat, So we're just, it's twofold, almost like we're accepting the bad behavior that they're giving out. So, right. And I don't know, like I said, too, I think we should examine the whole cultural thing, too, and I want to hear what other people have to say, but I know even, I think about it I know my coworker was saying it's a really big thing for Italians too, and how they they open the door for their women, and they know how to kind of treat them. They treat them in this kind of reverence way where they are taking care of them. And I know a lot of other cultures feel the same way. The reason why I said Italians because I think about Bronx Tales, and I think somebody else told me about Bronx Tales, the movie, and they were just saying, this kind of etiquette that their mom forced them to kind of do, when dealing and treating a woman. So,
I mean, I think that you raised a very interesting point when you talked about age. I definitely would say the experience, from my personal experience and when I've maybe experienced an act of chivalry, it definitely was from an older person. I'm not saying that a younger person hasn't, but I would more so expect it. And I'm wondering if it's something generational. Is it something that's just not being taught? One of the articles even referred to it as being a traditional, kind of like what we talked about, opening the car door, those kind of acts being traditional stereotypes and outdated, and that chivalry has actually evolved, and it looks different. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to speak about is that, now that women are feeling more independent, men are now, this is what the article says, men feel like they're not needed as much to act in these traditional ways. So, because women are working, I don't need to pay for a meal because she now has a job. Why would I pay for a meal? We can go half, for example. So I'm wondering if just the change and the transition that has happened over the last few years pertaining women and the evolution of where we see women in terms of roles and expectations, if that definitely once again plays a major part in it. Or is it just something that generationally, because you spoke about it culturally, but you notice sometimes with generations it's just not, certain things generations carry over and some things they don't. Maybe this generation doesn't find a need for it. I know we had a discussion on social media, but we're not having a lot of face-to-face conversations anymore. There's a lot of text. So that ability to kind of be intimate and have these face-to-face is very limited. And so I think our social skills kind of have changed. You know, how we communicate with each other have changed. Maybe how we see acts of kindness, probably because of these limited opportunities, will certainly change. What are your thoughts?
You know, I when you said something even just now, I mean, how would you feel if a guy, and that's the thing, I think that even the part of about the guy asking you out, you know, guys are saying they don't even ask you out no more. They're like, they use the word sliding in your DM now, and they'll ask you, like, you know, they'll ask you to come and, like, hook up a straight, you know, no more can I take you out, you're beautiful, but it's like, you know, can you come over to my house? You know, we'll get takeout, and, you know what's next. You know, it's ultimately sex. That's what they're after. They don't, you know, they don't have to, like, wine and dine you. But how would you feel? I mean, I'm just thinking about me today, and if a man asks me out on a date and then expected me to pay half of the bill, you know, yeah, I can pay half. I would have a problem with the expectation of him thinking that I could pay half. I mean,
but is that because culturally your father or maybe your family has instilled certain values and what your expectation could be in a male versus someone who, you know, has no expectations? So going half is nothing. Like, do you feel like you feeling like that obligation that the man should definitely hold his own comes from how you were raised?
Maybe, because I feel like a man should want to take care of me, even if I seem intimidating or I seem like I have more or a better job, better education, better. I want a man that has those, I guess, those chivalry qualities where he wants to take care of me.
And it's interesting that you say that, because it may not even be taught, like, you know, your father sat down and said, sure, this is what it is, but I definitely know when I'm out with my husband, he pays for everything, and I know that my daughters see that. So even though I can't say that I've sat down and had a conversation about chivalry, I definitely feel like their experiences around just their parents and what they see their father do definitely is something that they'll carry over as they get older.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Even when we go out for dinner, you know, that's just, I don't know. Now that you're thinking about it, I never thought about it like that, but those are the acts that they see.
They see, exactly. We have somebody in the queue, so let's see what their perspective is. Hi,
Good evening, caller.
Hi, guys. I just have two things to say real quick. So I'm going to give you guys a brief story. So I traveled up, and when I was traveling, I have more children than my hands can hold, okay? And I'm traveling up, and I'm in the airplane, and I have 3 bags. And where I was sitting, there was 4 guys, big guys, right there sitting in front of me and watched me struggle to put the bags up. And I said to myself, times are changing, because a man see a woman picking up anything, they would rush to help. These men, they watched me, and they didn't even offer to help. They watched me put it up. They watched me take it down. And the flight attendant came over, who was also a woman who's shorter than me, and was trying to help me put the bag up. And she looked over at them, and she just shook her head and kept walking. And I said to myself, times are changing. You know, and then I'm gonna flip it over to the other end. When you guys were talking about chivalry, I think of it as also in a light sense of courting. And I say to myself, I will share out my husband's food. I will go above and beyond, because no matter what, he tries to make me feel special. He courts me. He wants to take me out all the time. If I have a sitter, if I don't have a sitter, he's like, let's go on our date night, put the kids on the side, and let's just talk together. So it's always, he always makes me, he goes above and beyond to make me feel like I am important, and he wants to be with me. So that's all I want to say, guys.
So I have a question before you go, just because I think about it, and you know, maybe it's because you know, I was raised in a Jamaican household with a Caribbean background. And I don't know if, like, think about it, if they were, and we don't know where those guys came from. We don't know at all. But I keep thinking to myself, they couldn't have been, like, you know, men from the Caribbean, because they would have jumped in regardless of their age. Is that wrong for thinking? I don't know. Does anybody else have that same, you know, or maybe even, you know, I don't know if it's just like an American, I don't know. But that is something that, you know, I have, I guess, culturally, I think that, because even I think, like, my husband has left me to go and help another female, you know, that we're good, help another female with children, help another female with her bag. He's left me to go do that for some other woman. Yeah. And I think that's something that has, you know, and I'm okay with it. That's fine with me, because I kind of like expect him to do that.
Expect it. Like, me too.
Yeah, I kind of expect him to leave. Like, we're good. I have a purse. You know, this woman has 3 kids and she has 3 bags. You know, she's coming the same way as us. I would expect my husband to do that. But I don't know if, you know, if that's like a cultural thing, if it's just a thing in me that is the way I was raised because of the culture that I was raised in. You know, I don't know. So what do you think, caller?
Yeah, I'm from the same culture you're from. My family is West Indian. So all I know, my husband's West Indian. Most of my male friends are West Indian as well. Some of them are from the South, but I find the Southern men have similar qualities in that reference, where they'll be helpful and, you know, they will go out of their way to make sure that, you know, if they're on the bus, they'll get up for a woman, especially if she's pregnant. But now I find out in New York, when I take the bus, I'm like, what's wrong with these new boys? You know, like, even the kids, even the girls and boys, elderly people walk in the bus, they don't even get up.
Right, exactly. And that was like something that we were taught even as children. Kids. You know, you see an elderly person get on the bus, you get up and you give them your seat. All right, thank you so much, caller.
Thank you, caller.
You're welcome.
We have another call. I just wanted to interject really quickly.
Yeah.
So Tommy made that comment about the men watching her, and I think from those experiences of being like frustrated and annoyed, now when people ask, it's almost like I don't even want help. So it's almost like it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you have those negative experiences, because it's like, are all people like that, or was this like an isolated? And last thing, I come from a Southern background, and I definitely feel like it's not an American culture. I think that when we think of culture, you have to look at it in different perspectives. I think there's like generational culture. I definitely know there's the Southern hospitality. So I definitely know that men in my family are totally, you know, they always show acts of chivalry. I do feel like New York has always had this different kind of vibe, you know. I definitely, even when I go down south, people are always friendly. They say hello. It's just a different vibe, a different culture. So I don't think it's like American per se. I also think that there's different like regions or cultures within states and areas and places too, because New York has its own culture. I wanted to let the caller in. Hopefully I did it right. Good evening, caller.
Hi, caller.
Hello, guys. Hi. I just wanted to touch on some things that were previously said. When you talk about generational culture, I think it has absolutely become acceptable for the young people these days to have no form of manners or respect. Like, I could be walking in the mall with a stroller trying to get to the door, and the person in front of me will just let the door shut, not even to let it hold open. So I think it's just become, people have accepted it, and they don't necessarily, I don't want to say like in households instill it anymore. It's kind of like we have the mentality, every man for themselves, and move on to the next thing.
That's a good point. I think we've become immune to it. I was telling Tashora that when I have a stroller,
it's become like the norm.
Yeah, like when I go shopping, I don't even expect anyone to hold the door. I always position myself to kind of go backwards to push myself in, because I just know that no one would hold the door. So it's almost like I don't even, when I go through, I know I find my own tricks to get myself in and out. So I feel like I'm kind of desensitized to it at this point. Thank you.
It's crazy. Thank you, caller. You know, it's crazy because I'm listening to you guys talk, and it's I don't know, maybe I am wrong for this, but I kind of still have that expectation. Sometimes I gotta say, oftentimes I'm disappointed, yes, but you know, it's I still have that expectation that, you know, somebody's gonna hold the door. You know, somebody's gonna. I guess I shouldn't. And sometimes, like I said, I'm disappointed. But, I mean, I still see it out there. So I guess my answer to the question is I don't think it's completely dead, you know, but I think this generation is definitely more accepting or has a different way of, you know, like being. And if it is dead, for those people who feel that it's dead, what's the second part? The second part to the question is who killed it? Why is it the way that it is? I was going to get to that.
So one of the things that I wanted to kind of really quickly touch on, time is moving, is like the music. I definitely, I guess I'm an 80s baby, but I say 90s. I don't know. I always get confused on how you term it or coin it, but I definitely feel like in our music, someone pointed out, like in Neo's song, he has a song like called Miss Independent. And like, yeah, and like a lot of the music, everyone's like a boss chick, and like I got my own, and you know, it's a different vibe even in the music versus like the old songs where the men are kind of like serenading the women. It's different, and I kind of feel like somehow music is kind of crept up on us, and we're singing songs we don't even realize what we're singing sometimes, or what we're kind of taking in. And I definitely feel like for our to that kind of music, this music definitely to me doesn't infuse these sense of values that we're kind of talking about. So I definitely feel like music plays a part, the media as well. And, you know, what are our roles as parents? You know, you have a son. What are some things that you know, do you think, you know, it's a parent's job to ensure that? Do you think that parents kind of stop talking about it? And before I finish, I also wanted to raise a question. Do you feel like chivalry is even in church now? But I'll let you. And the only reason I'm bringing it up because we talked about culture, and I was thinking about, like, church, because I want to get into heaven's perspective. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
So with you know, you brought up a good you know, a good thing, because with my son, I definitely, and I don't, it's so crazy because I don't even think I have identified it per se as, or was aware specifically that I was kind of teaching him the etiquette of being like a man. But when I carry a bag, he knows now, even he's little, he's 7 years old, he'll run over and grab my bag. As soon as I come out and I have a pretty dress on, he's the first one to tell me how beautiful I am, you know, or he'll, you know, admire something like I got a new hairdo. He'll say, Mom, wow, you did your hair, you know, it looks really good on you. And he runs over. If his dad is doing something in the back, his dad will call him to help him fix, you know, whatever it is he's fixing or working on. So you know, so crazy. I didn't even realize that he was actually learning the etiquette, but he is. He's learning how to be a man. He learns how to treat his sisters. When he sees his sisters with a new hairdo or a new outfit, he'll tell them that they look nice, you know, and they feel nice.
But is this something is this something that you and your husband, like, you feel like you're teaching, or he's just learning that just by your household? Like, this is like a standard in your household, and he's kind of just soaking it all up. Do you think is it intentional, or is this just based on, you know, your everyday parenting? Because that's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like you're like going out of your way because he's 7, but just by, you know, his own experiences in the household and your family values, he's picking this up.
Yeah, I think so. I think some of it is definitely just picking it up. But I think sometimes with specifically how my husband interacts with him, I think he wants him to know some of the things that he's expected to do as a man. You know, I think, you know, he'll call him out when he's doing certain things. Like if he's working outside or he's doing something, he'll specifically call him. So I think some things, you know, he wants to instill in him. But other things, it's expectation and what we, you know, things we want to instill in him. So I think,
you know, what I got as you're saying it, I think that I'm wondering because we're trying to figure out like who killed it, and I definitely feel like with the lack of men being in their place or position, and the lack of men that are not fathers to their children. So, like, my husband always says only a man can raise a man, and I'm not, I know there are a lot of single mothers, and you do the best that you can, but he always said that there's just certain things like a woman cannot teach a man. It's only something that a man can teach a man, and so I'm wondering, if men are in their position to kind of show how a man should conduct himself, is this what we're getting? Because we talked about this generational shift, this generational culture, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I'm sure everyone on this call can probably agree that statistically our men are not in position. Whether they're just not in position for a lot of different reasons. So I'm wondering if that also contributes to this change in chivalry,
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that you said, only a man could, raise another man, I agree. In certain aspects.
I don't want to say raise, but I think that there's certain things,
to teach, and that's exactly what I'm feeding off of, because of course I can kind of like, I can rough my son up, I can kind of tell him what to do, but as far as like something that, like, when my husband speaks to him, it's a whole different a whole different behavior, that comes out of him when he speaks versus me. It's almost like, so he gets it definitely more, and I see that. I think it's a definite factual thing. It's a factual thing, so I agree.
It's pretty complex, though. It's pretty complex.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if anyone has any other comments before we go into Heaven's perspective. Once again, we're talking about, is chivalry dead? And if it is dead, who killed it? I was trying to, like, sift through and really figure out what is Heaven's perspective pertaining chivalry. And you had an interesting perspective. You were talking about, even though men and women are important to God, just the fact that he created us different, and he created us in a way where Eve is the lesser one in terms of like her strength, and Adam had his role and Eve had her role, and so wondering how that plays into our perspective and talking about chivalry. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, we, like you said, the men are physically stronger than we are, and just physically, you would, and they were also commanded that they should take care of their household. So to me, I don't know. I just, the whole shakeup with it, and I think the demand from God requires us to kind of play our roles. Just almost just like you said, like even in a household where you have a son and a daughter, and how you almost need all the puzzle pieces for everything to function properly. God created us in that way, that we all have our part to play, our role to play, and if we're all functioning the way that He intended us to function, then we'll be like a well-oiled machine. But if a piece is missing, then it's not going to work. And I think a lot of these etiquettes and chivalry pieces that used to, my words again tangled, pieces that used to, be put together, allowed it to work. And it all came from God's word and how we function back. And I think part of it is just how we kind of are missing certain pieces, if that makes sense.
No,
I'm trying to get my words together.
No, I follow you.
What I'm saying. We're missing the structure that God set up for us in the beginning.
And if we don't have that structure,
how are we supposed to? Yeah. So that's my.
I wanted to say, okay, in 1 Peter 3:7, it says, it alludes to the innate difference between men and women, instructing husbands to treat their wives with consideration as a weaker vessel. And, weaker vessel does not mean inferior, but, weaker just meaning that they need protection, and so I kind of feel like it was designed from the beginning as well, for men to play a certain role in women as well. Some people may argue or disagree. I always kind of question, the scripture where it says that women should strive to be for a gentle and quiet spirit. I think that's 1 Peter 3 and 4.
Yes.
And, conducting herself with kindness and class, so that men can be that role, because you also have women who don't know how to conduct themselves and receive it as well. Right. And so as I get older, I feel like I'm kind of understanding what that gentle and quiet spirit references me to when we think of 1 Peter 3 and 4. This was a very interesting conversation. I'm actually looking forward to our gender roles conversation that will probably kind of only build on this conversation. Do you have a challenge tonight? I know I have a challenge. For everyone that tuned in, I want to challenge you to continue the conversation. I think that, as we kind of inference in the scripture, and I'm sure you guys might have your own perspective, but I think that it's important that we talk to the men in our families, whether, it's your fathers, your sons, and kind of figure out where they stand with it. As our conversation and processing it, I realized that it doesn't even have to be, chivalry doesn't always have to be something intentional, but that our children and our loved ones kind of pick up on what they see, which is pretty interesting because my mom never really had a conversation with me. I know I don't have a conversation with my daughters per se, but I definitely, like I said in the conversation, they see the way that their father treats me and how he takes care of his household. And I think that will give them insight of their expectation of how they should be treated when we think of chivalry. So, keep the conversation going and don't let it die here. Tashora, do you have a challenge for our audience?
I don't know if I fully have a challenge, but I definitely would like, everyone to kind of think about this as we, go into our conversation for next week, because we're just going to continue and expand upon this one. I guess the, question that I still have is, just because you have expectations of how a man should treat a woman, does that mean that you can't also be, that woman that likes to, take care of yourself? I think there's a balance. I think we can have both. So I kind of want to, everybody to kind of think about that. And, yes, continue to have the conversation. And, I hope everyone could bring their perspective into the conversation next week, because everyone's perspective helps to make each of us better. So I look forward to talking to everybody next week. And do you have anything else?
No, have a good night. Tune in next Wednesday. Please share our information with your coworker, your friend, family member, because like Tashora said, perspective is everything, and we are so looking forward to hear everyone's perspective on our various topics. So once again, Wednesdays at 9:30. Thank you guys for tuning in. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, The Gray Area Conversation. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night.